Absolutely.
I think that's good enough to have you on here.
Okay, good.
I think that qualifies. All right. Let me get the formal YouTube intro out of the way, and we will let it
Hmm.
rip. Cool.
Let's do it.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. Today it's time for an exclusive conversation and interview with a master of the interview, a man who I consider to be one of the best content creation people alive in my timeline. We have Mr. Andrew Callaghan on of Channel 5, and everything else that you know him for. So we're going to be talking about his recent outings and videos and projects that he's working on, anything else that comes up in the conversation. I was hoping to also get a bit of a retrospective on everything that's brought you up to this point. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
Well, thank you so much for the kind intro. I appreciate it. I'm doing great. Been working on this movie for the past, year and a half. It's almost finished. Me and Evan and Nick, my two friends, were like making a pilot for a cartoon, and I'm writing a new book right now. So a lot of new stuff coming.
Holy shit. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you bring up the movie. Do you want to get into that first and then maybe like kind of
Yeah,
work
sure. So
backwards?
for those who don't know, I gave you kind of an exclusive look at the movie that I've been working on with Tim and Eric for the past
I
like
was going
year
to
and a
ask if you
half.
were cool with me saying that.
Yeah, definitely. You're friends in the family, so you're on the list.
Well, yeah, I mean, Andrew has pretty much together like a rough cut, if you could
Hmm.
say, of this movie, and he showed it to me, and I watched the whole thing, and so far, like obviously, you're still putting like the finishing touches on it, but like the material that you have, the raw material that you have, is great and fantastic, and for anybody who's not in the know, it all kind of rotates around Jan 6th. But one of the interesting things about the movie that it would be interesting to kind of, for you to go into is that, like, it's about Jan 6th, but simultaneously, in so many ways, it seems like it's not almost, it's also not, because it sort of
Yeah.
seems like it was almost serendipitous the way it kind of played out, because there's so much footage and there's so many interviews and there's so much action throughout the whole thing that obviously, in the political sphere, you had already been recording for months,
Right.
and it just sort of seemed like, eventually kind of riding down this road, Jan 6th happened. And it was like, okay, that's like the big event that this all kind of built up to, you know?
Right. Yeah, I
So,
think the strange thing is that it felt like at that time. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh no, I was just
Uh,
going to say, so like, when would you say like, kind of the filming and production of this thing began? And when it did begin, like, were you kind of looking for that moment, like right out of the gate, like, what is this all gonna revolve around? Like, what is this going to come to a head to that I can kind of like put a flagpole in it?
right. Well, I think in that period of time, and it's hard to remember now, but like right after when the pandemic kicked off and after the protests kicked off in the spring of 2020, right before the 2020 election, in that like 4.5 month period, it really felt like we were heading into what felt like a second civil war. I didn't think that
Yeah,
would happen, but the news machine was, basically orchestrating this like massive clash between the two fringes of like the American political system. And
sure.
I guess it was interesting because I always knew something like January 6th would happen based upon the echo chamber getting tighter and tighter on both sides of the political spectrum. But I thought it was maybe the precursor to a series of events. I didn't know that January 6th would be the ultimate like finale of the whole political theater of that time, because I remember we even went back on January 20th, which was supposed to be the second January 6th, like inauguration day. And the streets were completely occupied with troops, and there wasn't like a single angry protester there. So it kind of felt like this just like lightning in a bottle whirlwind period of time that just came and went. And so that's what I think I'm most excited about with the movie is when it first came out, I was bummed because I was like, oh, I want this to come out right now because it feels so, newsworthy. And we have this, insane January 6th coverage. I want people to see it. But as more of a retrospective, now that we're entering this sort of like, I guess, calm, unimpassioned political phase, it's interesting to look back in time and think, holy shit, like America was at maximum intensity for an extended period of time.
Right. And, not to give like, too many details away or anything like that, but like, go into your process maybe in terms of how you crafted or kind of sculpted the progression of this film, because something interesting about the dynamic of this that, simply because of the format, maybe you haven't been able to do to this degree in like your previous videos on YouTube. One of the interesting things is that some of the interview subjects sort of after the fact, you're able to kind of go back to them and get their thoughts again,
Yeah.
and some of them have almost had like a night and day difference in terms of the way they see things, like after this moment kind of happened. Like, again, you've done a lot of single interviews with a lot of people and kind of caught some crazy stuff on camera. Like, what exactly drove you to the point where you were like, we need to talk to some of these people again and kind of get some more perspective?
Well, I like the idea of following a storyline with somebody, especially if it's like radicalized individual and you talk to them when they're at their most impassioned, and then you get to kind of catch up with them further down the line and figure out, what became of that. Someone who truly believed that the storm was going to come and that the military was going to arrest every member of the deep state and reinstate Trump. Somebody who truly believed that, where has their pride gone and how have they transformed since that moment? So that was one of the coolest parts of the movie, and I don't want to give too much away, was being able to catch up with people after they were, a part of that like sinking ship.
In your own experience, again, without having to get into the details of the movie, because, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people just on the fly who aren't necessarily on film or anything like that. Has that kind of been, at least anecdotally, a pattern that you've noticed? Like, have you seen a lot of like disillusionment across the board, or are you seeing more true believers kind of like going the distance?
Well, I mean, I think that the fringe hardens in general because there's certain people. I think it's very pride related, and a lot of people can't accept the fact that they may have believed something that, was incorrect. So they kind of double down. But I think a lot of people are able to see through the mist of everything. And also, to be honest with you, I mean, I think that most people are good.
Right.
I know that both sides of the, mainstream media try to like, fabricate this like ultimate domestic enemy that is like right around the corner. It's a threat to your livelihood in every way. But I think that most people are good. And then if they see that they're a part of something that, went to a bad place, I think they're able to regroup and think like, okay, who am I now? And am I just a member of a mass movement, or am I an individual? And do I prioritize my family and their well-being? And that was one of the interesting parts of the movie is, we talked to that family that was like completely indoctrinated into like the conspiracies of the Q world. And I don't want to give anything away, but following, their trajectory throughout pre and post January 6th was one of the coolest parts for me.
No, for sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about something that we had a conversation on the phone about, in preparation for this, given what you're talking about here in terms of like your interview subjects, and that's just like platforming. And that's something that people have been kind of critical of you in the past, and other people as well, just like merely the idea that you would take the time to like have a discussion with someone like the QAnon shaman, for example. Like, what is your own personal philosophy when it comes to having conversations with, individuals like that, and not necessarily like sitting down for an interview where you're just like grilling them to death. You're just kind of allowing them to kind of say their piece so that you could actually understand their perspective. And from your own perspective, like, where do you think the disconnect is with other people in terms of like being able to see your intentions when you're doing that and understand them?
Yeah. Well, even if I disagree with someone, my intentions are to get to like the true core of what they're saying. And sitting across from someone and ridiculing them and grilling them to death and trying to, prove that they're wrong and intellectually like, big dog them just isn't effective. Because if it was effective, things would be different like they are now. And then, it's stuff like the Daily Show, like the Jordan Klepper style coverage that is leading to like this growing distrust with the mainstream media. And, they do a great job. But, as far as platforming, so much of the country feels this way. There's probably, I would say at minimum, like 30 to 40% at one point of the voting populace felt that way. And I think a lot of people who were concerned that I was platforming people, I mean, now you can see that it led to like an actual attempted like insurrection. So hopefully people can reflect now why I was so interested in talking to the Q people and flat earthers, leading up to what happened. But, I when I think about it, for my philosophy, it's like I will give a platform to something that is already out there and well known. Like something like the Proud Boys. That's like pretty much household name right there. But I probably wouldn't give a platform to like a more fringe group. Like I don't want to name anyone specifically, but like some of these alt-right people, podcasters, figures. I'm not interested in talking to them because I know that's just going to give them a bigger audience. I try to platform. If I'm platforming anyone, it's because they're already known to the public, and I think that people need to see what they're saying. Because it like has a concern, because it's like literally concerning.
Yeah. No, I think it's kind of important to illustrate your interview approach there, because one of the things that, in terms of like not big dogging somebody, because I think that ends up being one of the most pivotal things in terms of like, I'm just always amazed constantly by your access, because like, you see CNN or whatever major news group run up on these same people, and it's like the response is always like, "Fuck you, get the fuck out of my face," and da 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 da, fake news, but you know, when you're rolling in, even though like if you objectively look at your videos, like your coverage of someone from say maybe the Proud Boys isn't exactly flattering, you know what I mean?
Right.
But the thing is, like, they still sit down with you and just say anything, you know? It's like their guard's completely down, and it just kind of like, you know, give me from your own perspective why you think that is, because even though you're not exactly like, you're not coming in there to suck these people dicks and say like, oh, you're the greatest, you're the smartest, I can't believe how, you know, it's like, you're so right. You're not just like heaping praise onto them. And when you see the final product, obviously there is like a bit of editorial criticism there in terms of how they're portrayed, but yet still like they totally let their guard down and they just like let you, you know everything that they have to think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I am just like an empathetic, a kind person in general. So the first thing that I think when I talk to someone that I disagree with in that way is like, why? Like, oh, you know, kind of like when you're a toddler and you ask your parents the question, why? And you get to this like bizarre core truth. I sort of do a similar thing. And then if they're mad, it's just because I've held like a mirror. You know, if you look at the way that like, you know, CNN, for example, goes into these situations, you know, they also make optics mistakes. Like they will wear like an N95 at like a Trump rally, which is just a red flag. So you got to make those little aesthetic adjustments if you want access.
You need an American flag N95 across your face.
I used to wear a USA gator like up to my eyes, like I was wanted by the FBI, you know?
No, I mean, you know, and well, that's another thing, like, especially like with something like, for example, the convoy video, like you go in there looking the part with like, you know, the construction color, you know, jacket and the hat and everything. Like you kind of blend in. You definitely try to like get into whatever the vibe is of the area where you're there. Or, you know, we see you kind of play up the whole, you know, thing with the suit and the tie to sort of like also stand out and attract people.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to drop the whole suit and tie thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just too much of a joke, you know, like as I'm getting older, like, you know, I'm doing like less jump cuts. Like I want to move more into serious journalism, obviously with still some humor. And the suit thing is just too over the top, like memed out. You know, it's like Borat Anchorman energy. Cause like I want to be able to get press access forever, right? So if I do 10 straight years of ambush interviewing with a suit on and staring into the camera after I zoom in on your mouth while you're screaming, you know, there's going to be a point at which someone's like, this guy cannot come to our event. You know, so I figure if I transition toward that way, it'll give me more access in the future because it won't last forever.
No, absolutely. You know, when that does happen, you know, not presuming that it will, you know, obviously I'm not hoping for that, but like, you know, when you do feel like there is a situation where you are getting less access, what do you feel like is going to drive that? Do you feel like everybody's going to be, oh, we know who that guy is, like, you know, he's not going to give us the most flattering coverage, or is it going to be something else that kind of just like, you know, prevents that from happening?
I mean, I just think if, you know, like, for example, the PGA, you know, the golfing organization, sent us an email saying you're never allowed to cover any of our events. And we didn't even apply. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even apply. But they were like, let's just make sure this fucker can never come to a golfing event as long as he's alive. So it's those kind of vendettas where I'm like, I want to be able to go to the, you know, Waste Management Cup or some like PGA event where I can just like actually get into it about golf.
Right.
Mostly sporting events don't let us go because like, oh, these guys aren't sports journalists. Like they can't. They don't know a single player's name. They can't come to the game.
Is there also something, you know, in the name Channel 5 that kind of has that intent behind it as well? Because if you just present people with the name Channel 5, oh, Channel 5, that sounds official, or it sounds like every other thing named Channel 5, so it doesn't kind of raise any, you know, red flags. Yeah,
exactly. And we actually own Channel 5. Isn't that crazy? No
really?
one had ever
Seriously?
trademarked or copyrighted Channel 5 ever. They have like Channel 5 KTLA, Channel 5, like different cities with their like news conglomerate in front of it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because, you know, the call, it would be Channel 5 in the call letters.
Yeah.
But nobody would just be Channel. Nobody would be just, I mean, I've worked in radio. Nobody would just be Channel 5, just Channel 5.
No, it's bizarre. We got the name the name Channel 5 because like whenever we'd be doing an interview with someone who was like really trying to like act for the camera, back in the All Gas No Breaks days, we'd be like, hey man, they'd like, what's this shit called? We would just say Channel 5, so they would think that like maybe their mom or grandma would see it, so they'd be like, oh shit, I gotta go. So like whenever we get like the fucker right in the pussy people who would like interrupt our interview, we'd be like, yo, this is Channel 5, and they'd be like, oh shit, my bad, and they'd be out. So yeah, that's why we did it.
Okay, all right. You know, you mentioned kind of the philosophical direction that you're going in terms of like, you know, the journalistic tone of what you do. As somebody who has spent years in journalistic institutions and studied it myself in college, is that your background?
Yeah, actually, I had a 4-year bachelor's degree in journalism from
Amazing.
Loyola University of New Orleans, and I wrote
Wonderful.
for my high school newspaper all the time.
Wow.
But I think what they were preparing me for in J school was not journalism. Like they're preparing me to write for like a local paper or like a nationally syndicated news station for Gray Media or something, where I'm in Panama City Beach, Florida, getting paid $25,000 a year to write about like local bakeries opening.
Hmm. No,
Shout out to any
I know that vibe. I know that
yeah,
vibe.
shout out to anybody doing that.
Yeah.
Anybody laving people inside of a strip mall and being like,
Shout
"So
out
tell me what made you want to start this bistro?" Like those people are,
shout out to anybody on that grind.
yeah, those are the people really doing the Lord's work. But like, I didn't want to do that.
Right.
I wrote from yeah, a lot of my peers from college are doing that, and they're kind of bummed.
Right.
Not on me, but on their own life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. I mean, honestly, like when I got out of school, I wasn't and went into NPR,
Mhm.
which is where I worked for a few years. I wasn't anticipating making a living on YouTube eventually. So there you go.
Right. And you've done great. I don't want to switch the subject, but I wanted to ask you, who do you think
Yes.
is the worst? Who do you think is the worst rapper in the game right now?
The worst rapper in the game, period.
Yeah.
The worst rapper in the game, period.
Or you could do even 3 worst rappers if that's too hard to select.
Like worst rapper. Wait, sorry. What worst rappers? What?
If you could also do like the 3 worst
The
rappers as
three
opposed
worst
to just,
rappers?
yes, it might be
Like
a little bit easier.
like consistently, the worst ones. Nav is in my top three probably. He's just like so soulless. Just like there's just no soul.
No.
It's kind of hard to say sometimes because like I feel like there are a lot of weird there are a lot of like really classic standards that have that completely been obliterated over the
Yeah.
past year. You know what I mean? And then you have like a lot of rappers who, by any metric, are like not good, but there's this like post ironic reason that you enjoy them anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like so it's almost like they become so bad that they are good, and there's almost like an
Yeah.
ingenious outsider quality to what they do. But like
Yeah.
I will say, like, to me, like Nav's music for the most part just kind of feels like staring into a void.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
also
I would agree. I would
yeah.
agree.
I mean, maybe also just like Tory Lanez. I feel like he has no
Yeah.
sound, he has no flavor, he has no personality, he has no anything.
That's true.
I would also say,
Well, let me just say,
I don't know if I have a
your
third.
your Comethazine album review is one
Yeah.
of my favorite music reviews of all time. I actually watch it like once a month at least. When you're reading certain Comethazine lyrics out loud with a straight face, that's just the best the internet has to offer.
And that's kind of another thing. It's like often, and there are rappers who I will kind of focus on coverage wise in that way, like Nav. But when it comes to like, an artist like Comethazine, for example, who, still to this day is on like this long dead SoundCloud aesthetic that like no one is interested in anymore. It's like, and he's like still like hammering that out as if it just like started last week. To me, that's obviously also like the mark of somebody who is like not really progressing, not really creative at their core. But simultaneously, it's like, but when an artist hits that, and to me, that's like, kind of an artist who, would definitely like be worth throwing in that bottom three, maybe. I just kind of stopped paying attention. I'm not even like paying attention anymore. You know what I mean? The only reason that like, Nav continues to be like interesting to me as far as like coverage is that like as far as like staring into a void, I feel like nobody is out voiding him.
No.
It's like to me he's like really at the pinnacle. Like nobody is competing with him in that lane.
Yeah, and the mysterious sort of origins where it's just like before you know it, Nav's like doing a hit song with Gunna like out of nowhere. Like it's
Right.
almost like it blows my mind. It's like a conspiracy that has brought Nav in front of us.
Also I will say Gunna does hit me in a similarly kind of mediocre way. Where,
Yeah, I felt that way about Gunna's new album as well. But there's
Yeah.
so many like hits that were so good. I just can't believe he got XXL Freshman over Lil Baby. That's what I found most offensive. Lil Baby's inspirational.
Lil Baby is a lot more inspirational than he used to be. I think he's getting better and better over the
He's
years.
getting more inspiring by the
It's true.
day.
It is true.
Okay, my bad. I didn't mean to fuck up your whole question
No, no,
schedule. I
no.
just wanted to
Hey,
ask.
you're an interviewer, so I appreciate you
Yes.
coming on and asking
Yeah.
me
You
a
just
question.
consume you consume so much, and I just wanted to know your answer to that one question.
No, and thank you for helping me out with like the third place.
Yeah.
I would have felt bad if I only walked away with two.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about that transition in a way, because you talked about, sort of some of your schoolmates like going into that kind of job, but you took a different direction. Like,
Yeah.
for anybody who's, not in the know, and I don't know if there's kind of like another rock or kind of, lily pad that you leapfrog to before this that you might want to mention or get into. But like, for anybody who's not in the know, like, much of the internet, or at least some of the internet, got introduced to you originally through those quarter confessions videos where you
Yes.
were in New Orleans and doing those like man on the street vox pop conversations with people who are just
Right.
like absolutely fucking drunk off their ass. But again, like still you had this journalistic background, like, what kind of drove you to do that and engage in that and just like kind of put yourself out there in that way, is sort of like, this is a content opportunity. This is something
Yeah.
people might like to see. It may not necessarily be like journalistic in the traditional sense, but I'm just going
Yeah.
to try this.
Well, the original thing was a zine that I wrote. So
Mm-hmm.
what actually happened is, after my freshman year of college, I was so disillusioned by the journalism program that I was in and the stories they were having me cover, like banning vapes on campus or hoverboards being dangerous. I was just so over it. So I decided to hitchhike around America by myself when I was 19, hang out at weird motels and transit centers with like a little iPhone recorder and just like get stories from like runaways and outlaws and deadbeats and the kind of people that just are kind of floating around towns like Reno or Espanola or just West Texas and Lafayette, Louisiana and Crowley, Louisiana, some of these weird places. And I ended up going to New York after that, and I self-published a zine about it. It was like a story zine that my friend Dominic Frost helped me edit. And then, that was a little mini success in my mind. Like my goal when I wrote my zine was I want one person who I don't know to read the zine.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just want to have a reach that extends beyond my general social network. And then I sold like 50 zines and I did a reading at a graffiti shop in Seattle called Art Primo. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then I slowly realized that like nobody really reads,
Mm-hmm.
and the attention span is just getting smaller and smaller by as the generations progress. So I went back to New Orleans, kind of just had a couple of years of working in the service industry and writing little stories and doing some hitchhiking for sure. Then I had a friend named Michael who came up with the idea to do the quarter confessions, which was like, let's go out on Bourbon and do like a taxi cab confessions kind of thing where we ask people what their deepest, darkest secret is and kind of have like a heart to heart about it. We took some of like our favorite editing styles, put that on there, and that just became like the little lightning in a bottle. The third time I've said that metaphor in like 5 minutes. Again, lightning in a bottle. And that was that. That kind of went viral.
Right.
And that led to me being approached by Doing Things Media, which is the company that currently owns All Gas No Breaks,
Yeah.
who put me on salary, gave me an RV, and just gave me what I needed to like, hit the. I sort of see like All Gas No Breaks as a fusion with like the philosophy of like the All Gas No Breaks hitchhiking zine, which I had written a few years prior. Then like the editing and composition, video wise, of Quarter Confessions.
Right. No, and you've talked about your separation from that All Gas No Breaks project and the way like
Yeah.
the money was split and how it wasn't fair and wasn't working out for you. But in regards to that, I wanted to ask you, like, even though you had been obviously operating under that deal that you signed very early, there
Yes.
is a bit of like a misconception in terms of like, oh, it was like stolen from you or da 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 da. No, this is like a deal that you signed super early on when you were still like in your early 20s and everything.
Yeah.
You've kind of went at length about all that, but if you could like go into what was that moment for you personally, that like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Because again, you had been operating under this deal for a while where you were just like, I got to get out of this. This can't continue anymore. Like, what was that thing that just kind of made you either snap or decide that this has got to be over?
Well, there was three things that happened in sequence. The first thing is whenever the protests started, in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, my first serious journalistic video was my coverage of the protests and riots in Minneapolis, like on Lake Street at that
Yeah.
time, and they were very unhappy with it. Even though the August No Breaks fandom was growing, and there was so much appreciation for what I had covered and the people that I had
Yeah,
spoken
that's
to.
one of your most beloved videos.
Right, but they were upset because they wanted me to lean more toward what they called party content, which is more like
Right.
Talladega style, like yelling, more quarter confession style, because it's more marketable. You can make T-shirts with slogans on them, and you can just monetize it even further.
Right.
Uh, that and then what happened next was just the wild success of the show. All the successful merch drops, the Patreon growing to over 25,000 monthly patrons. That's over like $100,000 a month. And I'm not a big money guy. Like I do this because I love to do it. But when you see a show making a couple $100,000 a month and you're only getting 20% of it, and you yourself do all the interviews, all the editing, and all everything, you manage it basically on your own.
Right.
You just start to feel like you're getting cheated a little bit, and it kind of
Yeah, and,
turns you
and it's a
sour.
little odd for a corporate entity to be running a Patreon anyway. It's like usually more of an independent
Right.
content creator thing, and,
Yeah,
and to have you attached to that and be like, hey, here's our Patreon. Like, you presume all of that money is going to you.
exactly, man. And then so the final thing that happened is, we signed the deal with Tim and Eric, with Absolutely, to make the movie. And like while we were filming for the movie, which was 7 days a week for like 8 weeks, I was getting just pressed by the two dudes at Doing Things Media. I don't want to say their names because I don't want to go to court or something.
Right.
But all the time they were like, "Hey, man, yeah, where's the new posts? Where's the new Instagram posts?" And I'm like, "I literally can't do that. That's I'm working on the movie." And
Right.
I finally told him, I was like, all right, if you want me to work 2 jobs and you want me to fly away from the movie shoot in Atlanta or Florida, or wherever we were at, to different like conventions and stuff, like I need a pay raise. I need more than 20% of profit participation if you want me to work overtime, because I'm like already killing myself as it is doing this.
Right.
And then they responded by saying, okay, no. And so I said, okay, then I'm not making any more videos. And they go,
That's stop, because that's one of the things I was going to ask you, because the thing is, like, they knew how successful what you were doing was. And I figured there had to have been a point where you were just like, look, I could do it. Just pay me more money. And
that's
they were
exactly
just,
what I said.
they were just like, no.
Well, they said, I remember the text specifically. It was like, we have a lot of connections in the comedy world, so I'm sure we'll be fine. I don't know, man. I guess they thought like some stand-up guy could just come and live in the RV and edit all the videos. I don't know.
Oh, so
But
you think the implication was to just like literally replace you and just have somebody else do it?
that was the plan. They had a bunch of
Really?
people lined up to replace me, and one of them they even told that I was still working on the show, but that I was taking a more like backseat EP position because I was so burnt out from all the crazy people that I just had to like, take a step back.
Yeah.
I think that they were so far from they had never been on set before. The
Right.
people who own All Gas No Breaks or whatever the set was, they'd never been in the RV with me, Nick, or Evan.
Right.
So I think they thought that I don't think they understood the process, and they believed that I was replaceable. I tried to tell them, I was like, yo, you should not replace me. People are going to be pissed off. You're going to ruin some kid's life, because whoever comes in to replace me is going to be one of the most hated dudes in America.
Right.
And then they fired Nick and Evan via email. They were just like, they shit canned them. I guess thinking that if they fired my two best friends, that would like make me want to work harder. It just got so messy. So I had to get a bunch of lawyers. Shout out to Jonah Hill for hooking me up with like the best lawyers ever.
Wow.
He hooked me up with an agent and lawyers when he figured out what I was going through. And so shout out to him. And then finally I broke free. And shout out to Taylor Lorenz at New York Times too, because she published the contract dispute and how ugly it was.
We love
Yeah.
Taylor Lorenz here. I was texting her the other day.
Okay, cool. So because of her and because of how hard she worked to get the story out, even though I was still in a 360 deal, so I couldn't even talk to the New York Times. She talked to people around me who weren't under contract, got the story out, got me free. And then after that article came out, everybody knew what happened. And so Channel 5 had a lot of traction as it began, because people felt like they were a part of something that was like retribution for a shitty deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way you explain it. It sounds so chaotic, but I wanted to ask you, like, if there had been a lot of planning going into it, because as you kind of fell out of that in what sounds like as violent a way that you did, the Channel 5 thing kind of seemed to come together really quick.
Yeah, because I mean, we realized how simple it truly is. With fewer chefs in the kitchen, it was me, Nick, and Evan. Like we drove the RV to LA, started renting like a spot out there in East Hollywood, just sitting there trying to figure out what to do. Just like imagine like every night getting beers, talking about what the hell are we going to do next. And it was like, why don't we just us three not try to get an overseeing agency and just make the show and just put it out. And so, we had a bunch of stupid names like social studies and like road runners, all these like super cringy names we were going to call it. And then Nick was like Channel 5. And then we did our first video, Miami Beach Spring Break. And then we've been making videos ever since.
Mm-hmm. And, and personally, I mean, I noticed over this course of time, like, a real shift from, some of the videos that you used to do on all gas, like for example, the Flat Earthers Conference, which is like, obviously like really great footage and really compelling and really interesting, but like there is like a real goofiness that's like, really prevalent throughout the entire like video and everything. But the thing is like, while there are clear elements of comedy in what you do on Channel 5, like, there's like a lot of serious kind of commentary and portrayals of like, I guess, objectively concerning situations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess like, in that transition, like kind of what was going through your head in terms of like, we need to make this full kind of journalistic swing in a way, even if we're doing something like, covering like some weird Uhuru event and kind of like expose the weird white privilege intentions underbelly of what these people are really doing.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you always say like you're your biggest hater. And when I look back at the early All Gas No Breaks videos, like a lot of like the on the nose sarcasm just kind of cringes me out. Like, like a lot of the Ron Burgundy Borat vibes. I just don't feel that way. I think I'm actually just getting older. And, I wanted to create something new that can be more respected and people won't think of us as like ambush journalists or just meme guys. And obviously it's been tough because that's the easiest thing to do.
Right.
If I wanted to just like resort to reflexes, like I could spend every weekend going to, different regional Burning Mans and Juggalo events and just zooming in on people's, mouths as they're drinking, vodka out of a shoe or something and have them scream their, the name of their subculture into the camera. But look, other people are already doing it, and I'm not the type of dude to be all salty on Instagram Live and calling out copycat pages, because obviously I had big influences, Vic Berger, Louis Theroux,
right,
huge inspirations. But there is a lot of people online who are just doing quarter confessions and doing All Gas No Breaks. And so if you're being copied to that extent, and successful copycats who are signed to major agencies now and getting on TV, just move on. Don't be salty. Try to come up with something new, because you can only do the same thing for so long. That's how you get burnt out and just like washed up.
Right. I mean, do you feel like that attitude, that almost like kind of memey attitude, you've kind of moved away from it as much as maybe it's more evolved? Because like when I think about like the return to Talladega, for example, and I think of like a scene like the guy who you're talking to at night, and he's kind of talking about how like, the enforcing the vaccine is communism. And obviously like that's a very kind of classic All Gas No Breaks moment to kind of feature that guy in the way that you did. But then you sort of frame him in a way where the fireworks going on in the background and there's something almost like dramatic about it, as opposed to, it's not like funny haha. It's like, it's more kind of a subtle, humor to it, while also being portrayed in a weirdly poignant light.
Yeah, definitely. I think you definitely nailed that one. I'm glad you recognize that particular scene, because that was a real blessing while he was like, that's communism. And it was like fireworks going off. I was like, yes. But yeah, I think that just as I'm evolving and we're all evolving as consumers and creators, it naturally is. I'm 25 now. I was 22 when I made most of the All Gas No Break stuff. And probably when I'm 40 or something, it's going to be like totally serious. I don't know. No, it won't be. I'll always be funny, but
I mean, speaking of evolving, obviously like you creatively are not going to entirely know, even though you've been working on it for a long time now, like you're not really going to know what this movie is and what it's going to mean until it's out and you see how other people are kind of seeing and interpreting it. But like, are you already kind of like planning what you feel like your next evolution is going to be? Like, do you feel like the movie thing is going to be the thing for a while, or do you see yourself kind of going back to the usual Channel 5 grind from here and just kind of just doing more your regular thing, and then maybe a bigger project will come down the pipe that you take on?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I had to talk about this the other day. Like, we went to Ukraine, made that video,
right.
got 2 million views in a day.
I'd love to go back and talk to that about
the point I'm making is that boom, within 4 days it's shadow banned, and it hasn't gone up so much as 10 comments in the past 7 days.
Wow.
So there's just certain stuff where the reach is limited. And also it just feels like once the movie comes out, we'll just be considered as more than just YouTubers, because I don't consider us that way. I think we're journalists, entertainers, and we do something special, but a lot of people still have us in that realm in their heads. So I mean, like I said, I'm really excited about the book. I'm really excited about this cartoon we've been writing every day. I'm really excited about the movie. Like, there's a bunch of different stuff. I want to make longer form documentaries, and I'm still going to do YouTube, but I think I want to have more correspondents do more coverage on YouTube as well. I want to
Right.
grow Channel 5 as like a multiple correspondency thing so that I don't have to be like boots on the ground at like these fringe events. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, I'm going to keep doing YouTube regularly, but I'm definitely not in like a grind set where I'm like every 7 days, like new fucking hilarious video. We used to hire people to make TikToks and cut things for Snapchat and Facebook, but I just don't even want to go viral anymore. I just want to make stuff that I like. So when I go to do something, my first thought isn't like, is this going to do big numbers? Like, are we going to be able to make a merch drop with the sick ass thing on it, or like, are we going to go on World Star today? Like, nah. I think like, what do I want to do? Because I know how to go viral. I can keep doing it forever, but it's a series of highs and lows that I don't think makes the best art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that process from what you're talking about in terms of like bringing other people in. Have you already put any thought to what it looks like to train somebody to almost do what you do in a way and be able
Yeah.
to kind of capture that same magic?
That's a tough one because like they have to be serious individuals. Like I don't want to just train someone to act like me. Like Saddam, for example. Like I laugh at nothing. He laughs at everything. You know what I mean? Like he will laugh at anything anyone says because that's just how he is. He just like likes to laugh along with stuff.
Right.
So he kind of, but it still is semi awkward.
Yeah.
So it's like in that way, his personality works so good for the Uhuru event,
Right.
because he was just happy go lucky, just jovial going through it. But if I went with my sort of like sarcastic, drier vibe, I think those people would have like, kicked me out of there pretty quick.
Right.
I want him. It'd be kind of cool to have like a female side host as well,
Right.
and then like maybe one in like a bilingual side host so they
Right.
could like cover events in like Mexico and South America. Just hit different, evoke different sides of people that I can't because I can only evoke. I don't want to get into like race and all that shit, but like there's certain people that I can talk to, and they'll kind of always respond the same to like a big white guy in a suit.
Right. 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 Exactly. And again, obviously, like you do what you can to kind of blend into where you go. But like, as a white guy of a certain age, like you only have so much versatility. It's
Yeah,
like
for sure.
not everybody is going to drop their guard around you, regardless of how much of a big suit you wear.
Yeah, like imagine sending like a cool female correspondent to like a Miami like fitness conference.
Right.
Like that would just be so much funnier because they'd be trying overboard to like impress with the muscles,
Right.
But if it was me, they might just be like picking on me because they thought I was like weak or something. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. No, it would be a different dynamic. And it's
Yeah.
again, it kind of speaks to I'm just going to say it speaks to your genius that you see the difference there.
Yeah.
That you see the
Thank you,
difference
man. I
in
appreciate it.
dynamics, that you understand that. It's like
Yeah.
from your own experience personally, like what's tougher, like holding an interview with a conspiracy theorist or like a drunk person on Bourbon Street?
Probably a drunk person on Bourbon Street because drunk people, you just never know where they're gonna go next, like mentally. Like
Right.
a switch can flip, and they're just like, "I want to beat the shit out of you." Like love and hate are so closely intertwined. People who are blacked out on alcohol,
Mhm.
like the best friend and worst enemy thing, like couldn't be closer when you've like finished a bottle of Jameson.
Right.
Conspiracy theorists. I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm almost an expert at talking to them. You know what I mean? Like because I know where it's going and I know how to get there.
Mhm.
Just certain buzzwords.
Yeah. Is there at least give us a little bit of an idea here. Is there a certain finesse to that, or at least looking at it from the outside, like I would guess that some of these people are like in a way. Obviously, you don't want to make them feel embarrassed about how they feel or what they think, but like
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of them feel like so sometimes isolated in what they think and what they feel. If somebody shows any kind of like genuine interest in what it is
Yeah.
they're so obsessed with, they'll just like pour it all out.
Yeah, I call it like passive agreement.
Uh huh.
Where you're just like, oh, okay, cool, interesting,
Yeah.
keep going. And like it's more like the nod that means like interesting, not the nod that's like, oh fuck yeah, brother, like you're so right, because that shit they'll be able to see through that. You just gotta be like, because I actually am interested. Like I'm not faking it, but like I don't to watch someone go from like moon landing conspiracies to like flat Earth like Zionist controlled dome conspiracies within 45 seconds just by nodding.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of feel like Spider-Man.
Yeah, and also again to kind of take it back to the flat Earth thing, like the way some people would just like quickly go into the Jews stuff and just like Jews.
It's all about the Jews with the flat earthers, man.
It really
Dude,
is.
let me take dude, every day I get so much anti-Semitic online bullying. It's insane. I'm not even Jewish, but as the hair grows, so
Right.
do like the Nazi death threats.
Oh my
So,
God.
I mean, what's up with the internet? I meet people every day and no one's ever talking about Jews. I go online and that's what it's all about. Every facet of the internet. Pokemon trading, like there's someone being like, well, the Jews own almost all the fucking cards. Like, I'm serious. I'm like, shit. I just want to escape it, but I guess there's no escape.
If we could go into really quickly, just for the sake of my audience, like some of the weird and interesting like musical tie-ins that you've had on
Yeah.
the series that you've done over the years, where like, I mean, even again, that Flat Earth conference, like in comparison with a lot of the other All Gas No Breaks videos, for whatever reason there was just like an inordinate amount of people there randomly that just knew how to rap.
Yeah.
Like almost more
Totally.
than any other place that you were at previously, for whatever
Yeah.
reason, be it at the Flat Earth conference. But like, again, with like the Channel 5 thing, you've run across people rapping. I mean, Rowboat, for example, who,
Yeah.
you kind of came back to, and almost in like a Cole Bennett kind of way,
Yeah.
you got the video and you got the production going, and you really like made a whole thing out of it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody raps,
Yeah.
and every subculture is just littered with rappers. I would say one in every eight Americans has bars to spit. And I think me being a former high school party rapper myself
Mm.
under the name of Trek God, I think that I have a sort of impulse where I can look into someone's eyes and tell if they rap or not. I don't know.
Whether or not.
It's like a psychic communication because I rap too, like when I hear an instrumental come on, if I'm by myself in my car, like I definitely give like an 8 or 16 bar to myself. I'm just like, driving down the road, whatever. So I just see it.
Also, is there
I'm
an
like, you
added
rap?
is there an added element to it by the fact that you're holding a microphone? So it's like the other
Yeah,
person
that's
may know
true,
how
but
to
a lot
rap,
of people have
and
microphones.
they see the microphone and they're like, "Ooh, I could rap into that."
Yeah, I think that definitely could be a factor. It is very attractive to a rapper. But like,
Right.
yeah, dude, like everybody raps. I think in the future that's going to be how people communicate. I always said that people are going to sprint everywhere and rap instead of talking if things continue this way.
Got it. Like from your party rap days, are there certain instrumentals that you preferred to rap over? Like, do you have like a go-to instrumental that would be like your
I
beat
mean,
to like spit a hot
obviously,
16 on?
oh, I definitely like a 2012 Chicago drill beat. If it hits real hard,
Uh-huh.
spit some bars about journalism over
Okay.
like a Lil Reese, like Fredo Santana style FBG beat. I also
Got it.
like not a Brooklyn drill beat. No
Yeah.
hate on
No,
that. I just can't.
no,
I
no,
don't
no.
like those as
Yeah, no,
much as the old school
we
shit.
know the Chief Keef era. We know.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure you guys know. That's a good one. I
Uh-huh.
also like old like San Andreas loading screen like G-Funk beats. Those are pretty good just for cruising.
Okay.
That's
For
good.
when you're on an old school vibe, yeah.
When I'm on an old school one, LA sunset, palm trees, I could go for some sort of like Warren G energy.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff. Of course, oh, some like some Nation of Islam, like weird, like Mac Dre, like doo doo dumb, stupid beats for when I
Oh.
want to get like all metaphorical and like fizzed out.
Uh-huh.
That's a good one. Those are my top three beat subgenres.
Got it. Got it. And you just
Yeah,
rap wise, you just feel the most natural over those.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And when you're doing the drill stuff, does it get really aggressive? Does it get really really angry?
Yeah, I just murderous bars about other journalists.
Wow. Wow.
Is dissing the MSM super hard. No, I mean, I just rap about like, yeah, I love rapping, man. I'm gonna rap again one day.
Okay. All right. Well,
I am.
we're going to anticipate it.
I know.
All right,
You guys
so-
are gonna roast it or something.
Within like the last 10 minutes that we have or so, let me dig into something like angle wise with the movie that I kind of was like a question that I was left with after the whole thing. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, so I'm not like spoiling anything necessarily, but like,
Yeah.
you come to this, conclusion or this point of view or this framing where you're talking about the way all these various groups and ideologies and things like, Q and so on and so forth are being covered by the mainstream media. And, you're talking about like this kind of building tension, almost like a civil war is coming and so on and so forth. And, how a lot of this was just like, driven by the media in a way. And
Yeah.
The way that you talk about it, or at least the way that you frame it, at least on a surface level, to me reads as almost like, conspiratorial in a way where like, if you pressed a guy like Alex Jones on this, like, I feel like in some ways he would tell you the same exact thing, you know, but I know you don't think what Alex Jones thinks. I know, like, philosophically,
Right.
you guys are on very far end of the spectrum. But the thing is,
Yes.
like, I know that from watching him and knowing what I know of him, like, he would probably very much not only come to the same conclusion, it's probably something he's also told his audience countless times before. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, so knowing that, like, you know, what do you feel like, you know, even though you've come to very much a similar conclusion as to what a man like that would, like, what do you feel like, you know, ideologically, or like from your own mind, like, what separates the two of you? You know, what separates those two conclusions from each of you, even though you're coming to a similar or the same
Right.
conclusion? Like, what drives you to that point, as opposed to what
Yeah,
drives
well,
Alex Jones to that point? Because clearly what's driving Alex Jones to that point is madness. But like, you're coming to
yeah.
that same conclusion, but in sort of like more of a logical way. So it's
Because,
like,
yeah, I'll tell you.
how do you arrive to that point without being a nut?
Because I see where I fit into it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that I'm the saving grace of journalism. I don't think that the way I think about things and cover things is the antidote to this just like cycle of division the mainstream media has created. I see the ways that I play into it. I understand that I a lot of times create reactionary content, and I am also, you know, view driven, and naturally, you know, journalism is about shock value. It is about getting people, you know, either concerned or nervous or excited. Or journalism is about sad and important stuff. And I think that would be the main difference, is that I think a lot of people want to see themselves as freedom fighters and the only real free news who's winning the information war and just cuts through the bullshit. Whereas I try to, but I know that, you know, every journalist is biased, and I don't see myself as you know, completely outside that box.
You know, do you ever personally, when it comes to just like your general curiosities in terms of like what's going on in the world at any given moment, do you often find yourself just like watching or consuming mainstream news, or just kind of like the process and what you know of those organizations disgust you to your core so much you try to avoid it?
Well, it's not that it's disgusts me so much. It's just irrational, because the 24-hour news cycle that, from what Jon Stewart said, started after 9/11. It's based upon fear and outrage. You know, it's not, oh, prime time, 6 to 9 p.m. Here's some valuable documentaries. It's just punditry. So no matter what happens in the world, you know exactly how CNN and how Fox is going to respond to it. You know how they're going to break it down. They're going to watch something for you, digest it, and then basically relay what happened to you in the most inflammatory way they can, because they research the demographics and they know what's going to get them you know, views, so they can sell ads and people watch commercials and they get more money, because cable news, like all traditional media, is dying. So that's what's going on. I watch it, you know, but real journalism exists, but it's just boring. Like, if you wanted to read Associated Press briefings about, you know, what happened yesterday in a foreign country you've never been to, you know, most people in America would be bored by that, you know. But if it's some sort of like Oscars slap and Tucker Carlson reporting on that, and, you know, comparing it to the school boards in Florida and Disney, and it's just this inflammatory way where you're like, oh my God, it's all connected and I'm fucking pissed, you know, more tomorrow. You know, I watch it, but I am definitely bummed out by it, because news has become entertainment. And I wasn't around for when it wasn't, but from what I've heard from my parents and grandparents, like, I don't think Walter Cronkite was doing that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's true. I mean, as somebody who's a little bit older than you, I mean, you know, I still vividly as a kid remember a time when news was still really sensational, even if we're talking like 90s VHS days and stuff like that, because like, you know, some of the stuff that I remember the most vividly from news coverage that I saw repeatedly as a child, like even in, you know, just like single or barely double digits, was just like the over publicization of like the OJ trial. You know what I mean? Like, whenever I would see the news on, like, it wasn't usually like, today, you know, the local lake was poisoned and reservoir, and now there's protests and, you know, environmentalist concerns. You know, it was just like OJ, 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 OJ. Or it was like I remember the other publicized or over publicized trial that I remember from when I was a kid was the Lorena Bobbitt trial, where the guy got his dick cut off.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you know, which again, if you're like maybe 5 years or 10 years south of me, you may not even fucking remember. But again, like when that happened, that was just like covered over and over and over and over. There's a few people in chat who are like, "What? What happened?" Yeah. So that happened. You know, look, I mean, the 24-hour news cycle is definitely like a recent phenomenon, but like in the few hours that you would get news back in the day, it wasn't always great. It wasn't always informative. It wasn't always like helpful.
Yeah, it's just it's now completely full of like sensational punditry, which in pivotal moments is just damaging because it's like, it, this is one of the things the movie talks about. It's like these people don't want us to be peaceful. They don't want
Right.
us to come together or reach any type of mutual understanding.
Hmm.
That's why they bring on like the dumbest guests they can find and just roast the fuck out of them.
Hmm.
So like, look at how they like stoked the flames in 2020. They told us before the 2020 election that no matter what happened, we were absolutely doomed. If
Hmm.
you were to watch right wing mainstream media, they told you that a Joe Biden presidency meant like 100 years of Stalinism and like ultra Maoist communism, where there was no freedom and all your guns would be taken away. And now look what's actually happening. Just a pretty like lukewarm, just nothingness is happening.
Right.
And then on the other end, they said that, a reelection of Trump would lead us into like a fascist dictatorship. And I just remember that, remember what they told us would happen. And look at this sort of just weird, like, not just boring. Now, the American political landscape is back to like boring zero, like it was during like, Obama or something.
Do you personally feel like, I mean, I know you're not a sociologist, but, I asked this given kind of the framing that you just used, but, in terms of whatever wedges in between us societally that is keeping us from coming together,
Yeah,
like, do you feel like the media is that wedge or one of many wedges? If the media
definitely.
was, if
Absolutely.
the, in terms of like one wedge or the wedge?
I would say that it is the most significant wedge,
So,
you know.
if it was gone, what do you feel like would anything be preventing that, or do you
Well, the media
think?
shouldn't be gone. I think it just
Yeah.
transformed
Well, I
gradually.
guess gone in terms of the wedge. Like if it wasn't a factor in terms of a wedge.
Oh, I think there would be people. A lot of people's minds would change. I think there would be open dialogue and discussion, and just a broader sense of like empathy and understanding for different perspectives.
Hmm.
I mean, just imagine like a well-educated, person coming on to like the other side of the mainstream media's platform and like exchanging ideas in like a healthy way. That
Hmm.
sounds so foreign to anyone who watches American cable news.
Sure.
Like you ever seen when Jon Stewart went on Crossfire?
Hmm. No, I
That
do.
that that that
And shit on Tucker Carlson and so on and so forth.
everything that John said in that particular confrontation is the truest today.
Yeah. I mean, just to like, it is true. And I do fully agree. I mean, I guess to like, dig deeper into this and just give my own opinion on it, just as somebody who respects your opinion and thinks what you're saying is interesting,
Yeah.
is like, I think it hypothetically, if that wedge were to be removed, I think of conversely, like all of the things societally and systematically that make that edge that wedge so easy to put down in the first place. Because once you remove it,
Mm.
you still have like the economic inequities, you still have
Right.
the education inequities, you still have the racial inequities,
Yeah.
and it's and with those inequities sitting there already for the taking, or for the misrepresentation by the media to sort of like take
Yeah.
them and do with them what they will. They're still kind of there, and even if the media wedge wasn't a factor, you can't just sort of expect those things to heal on their own, so there would have to be
Yeah.
some kind of like systematic accountability for closing those gaps. And
Yeah.
I also hypothetically wonder, like, if we were to systematically, hypothetically, close those gaps and the media were still a shit as it is, would it be as easy for there to be a wedge in the first place? Would it be easier for people to see
Yeah.
through the wedge, and would the wedge not even matter whether or not it was being purposefully placed there to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to put it. And, unfortunately, certain things get politicized that shouldn't.
Yeah.
Why is mass incarceration politicized? That's a terrible thing. That's not something that it's totally ineffective. The prison system does not work to reform or heal crime. It
Right.
only makes it worse. Why is that something that is like a Democratic versus Republican thing? I
Right.
think you're right, though. I mean, that without the wedge, it would still be there. But I think that those who create the wedge and lay it down, they play upon the biases and insecurities of their viewership to get views for themselves, and then by extension, make it a little bit worse. But obviously, it's not like they made it. The media didn't like fuck up America. So America's been fucked in the head,
Right.
but they play upon it, for their own benefit, and
Yeah. No, I mean,
doing so worsen it.
I agree. I mean, I don't see the media as having like created it, and I think like people are on the more conspiratorial side of things you know, as somebody who's worked in a news organization and has been inside a news organization, often I am kind of blown away by sometimes like what people will say about like what they think goes on in them. You know, because it's, you know, it's like this, some of them assume like every day you kind of like put on your weird cult visor and you enter into, you know, the top floor, maybe even like the bottom floor for, you know, your weekly Jew meeting. And you have like, you know, all of these like thoughts, you have your directives beamed into your mind from the, you know, from you know, whatever. And then, yeah, then you go back and you sort of like wake up from it. And then from there, you just like, you know, you're writing all of the, you know, the things that they want you to tell everybody. But it's just so insane because like, you know, actually being in an organization like that, it couldn't be more boring. It couldn't be more milquetoast. It couldn't be more uneventful. Like the decisions that are come to, you know, couldn't be less interesting. And often when there is bias in terms of like swaying certain stories or certain perspectives or covering certain things, what's informing that 9 times out of 10 is just like, what's going to get the most viewers? What's going to make us the most money? What's going to attract the most people to this? And
clicks, man.
Clicks. It's clicks. Yeah. And it's funny that people feel like they have it's just funny to me that the need is there to like come up with an alternative explanation for it when it's all just so obviously money driven, and that's like the clearest and most obvious answer to all of it.
Right. It's money and algorithm driven. And it's hilarious that people think that it's some sort of like sci-fi style conspiracy, you know, or like this global conglomerates of you know, democratic satanic pedophiles or like communicating with the higher ups at
right. Well, that's I forgot about that. In the meetings, they're sending you the baby blood, so then you consume the baby blood. And then
so like someone stopped me in the street the other day, and he goes, keep it real, like you didn't see any green screens in Ukraine. I was like, what? He's like, you didn't see one fucking green screen there, dude. He's like, you were there for a whole week in Ukraine. You didn't see them setting up any green screens. It's just like, and he wasn't even irony poisoned. He was like a concerned New Mexico man.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny that, again, it's like the things that people come up with would actually be more difficult to pull off that way if that's what you actually wanted to do. Like if it was your goal personally at the end of the day to like, you know, be doing a shot and like a missile comes in through the background and you're like, oh shit. And it's like, but you know, the person's explanation or guess for that is like, oh, he must have erected 1,000 feet of green screens across the sky. When it's like, bro, you just CGI that shit or something or whatever. That's but no, thing, it's bro, like, it's green screens.
Conspiracy theorists don't even realize like, it's really hard to pull shit off, and people are bad. Human error is serious, and logistical failures are just constant. So like the fact that they think that like that you can pull off something like you know, turning the sky into a dome to convince us that the Earth's not flat. I mean, it's almost comforting for you to even believe that there's someone who cares that much about you, and that there's someone who's actually worked that hard to fuck with your head,
to trick you.
The secret is no one gives a shit about anybody but themselves. It's just the secret, man.
I think those are some good parting words to end things on. Man. Again, this has been a great conversation. You've been a fantastic guest, open book. I appreciate you coming on and just, you know, being willing to talk to me, and I very much feel the, you know, the mutual respect going on here for what each of us does. And I've loved what you've been doing since I saw my first All Gas video, and I continue to love seeing it grow and evolve, and it's just impressing me more and more every year.
Thank you, bro. It's really been an honor. Thanks for having me on your platform. Hopefully we can do something together at some point, maybe after the movie comes out or something like that.
Sure. And again, just to tell the chat, I've seen the fucking movie. I mean, I'm sure like there will be some changes between now and then and everything, but like I've seen the fucking movie. Yeah. I've seen the meat of it. I've seen the interview subjects. I've seen the way all the events evolved to Jan 6th. I've seen the amazing aftermath footage. It's really fucking good. Like, and look, this movie was also, I just did a video the other day talking about how little and how few movies I actually watch. If I'm lucky, I may watch 3 movies in a year. So consider yourself lucky. This will be one of the 3 movies I have seen this year. This year I will see 3 movies, and you've already eaten a third of my quota.
Dude, a positive review from you in any capacity is a blessing and a half. I mean, Jesus Christ. If I was a rapper, I would be so fucking scared of you, man. Because when you break down a bad album, it is just searing because it's so accurate. Like
Well,
you review shit where I'm like, you were too smart to even be listening to this. Like, you know, where I'm just like, no, bro. After this interview, I'm gonna watch that Cometas interview again. Oh my god, bro.
when when you come out with that when you make your rap comeback, watch out.
I know, dude.
You're fucked. No, I'll go easy on you. I'll go
Okay,
easy.
thank you, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, I'll run it by you first. I'll be like, are you okay if I completely just obliterate you off of
And the
this?
answer is gonna be yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. All right. But I just want to, I want to give you that, I want to give you that respect first. I want to give you that respect that just to know that I would ask for permission first.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, Andrew Callaghan, you've been great. Thank you so much for coming on again, and we'll talk to you again soon. And I'm looking to reconnect with you once the movie's out. I'm looking forward to seeing the release.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.